Welcome to Culture Talk. This is a segment where we talk about culturally relevant topics and how we can use them to start conversations about your faith. I'm joined today with theologian Krista Bontrager, and we're going to talk about the movie Soul. Thank you, Krista, for joining us.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, the movie Soul, it came out on Christmas 2020, and we wanted to give people time to kind of watch it. And now we're going to kind of unpack it. So first, I just want to know what you think about it.
There were some parts of it that I really liked. I loved the jazz component and that part of the storyline that he was this aspiring jazz person. I loved many aspects of Black culture that they worked into the film. And those were all the things that I really enjoyed about the film. I wish there had been a little more jazz, but that's just me.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think there should have been more jazz. I was hoping for that because I really love jazz. But we're talking here today, and the reason I have you on specifically to talk about this is because when we watch movies, we look at our own worldview, and we watch them through that lens. And so we have some ideas that were conveyed in this film that we thought, let's just talk about them. So what were some of the big themes that popped out for you?
Well, I think that the worldview is kind of a good place to start because every movie has a worldview, because every movie has people that write it, and humans all have worldviews. Now, some of those worldviews can come through very overtly, and sometimes it comes through more subtly. But a discerning moviegoer who's a Christian, a thoughtful Christian, you want to enjoy the movie, you want to enjoy the acting, the music, and all of those things that are great to celebrate. But you also want to be discerning of, well, what is this movie trying to teach me about how things are? And this movie, Soul, had a lot to say about how things are. What are those big worldview questions? Specifically, who are we and what happens to us after we die?
Yeah, it was really interesting because when I heard about this movie coming out, I'm like, Soul, okay, what will be communicated as far as humans having a soul, and like, where do we get the soul, and what happens after we die to that soul? So we got to see a lot of that in the film, and kind of this before life soul, and then we come to earth and we live our life, and then an afterlife,
Yes.
and what happens to us as a being. So how would you describe that worldview that we saw?
Yeah, it's had a lot of interesting components. They called the great before, which was sort of the pre-existent state, and then the great beyond, which is after our death. They also posited the idea that the body and soul are two different things, almost separate things that could become separated from each other. So I would say that some of these components, along with some other things we're going to unfold in a minute, the primary worldview is that of the New Age or Eastern mysticism, that they present a view of humanity and the afterlife from that perspective.
So how would the great before fit into a Christian perspective, or would it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because Christians historically believe that each embryo, each unborn child is its own unique creation from God, body and soul integrated together. But when you start thinking about the great before, that almost hints to like some kind of reincarnation from an Eastern mysticism standpoint, or even maybe like a view of our primordial existence that's present in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Right. Okay. So a different perspective than one that we would hold.
Yes.
But so then we have these worldviews kind of being presented. You talked a little bit about a New Age perspective. Can you unpack that a little bit more, and how specifically is that a New Age perspective?
Yeah, there was a few different elements there. For example, after you die, there was this presentation of going to what they called the great beyond. That was sort of the afterlife. And they had all these souls, not bodies, but souls on a conveyor belt, kind of going up into this big glow. And then they were just sort of annihilated. There was no concept of judgment. Everyone just sort of goes to the same place. and you don't know. It's sort of a mystery what happens to you after that. So there's kind of a presentation of universalism that is subtly presented there, but I think more overtly, there's a scene where astral projection, which is a practice that is growing in popularity, especially in the new age, where you can actually engage in a practice of separating your soul from your body and travel to other realms. And so this seems to me to be a critical part of the storyline, and could be seen as introducing kids to certain ideas of the new age, including chakras and astral projection.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, you know that I'm an artist. I dance and love creating. And when I viewed it, I didn't think of astral projection. So I wonder if other creatives will think in the same way. I just really thought, and they portray it, at least on the surface, as being something that being in the zone. So like the sign spinner, he is so into spinning his sign and being expressive in that he becomes in the zone. So I'm curious then, like how you would process that as someone who is wanting to be careful about what we engage in, but also understanding, like an artist would see it as being in the zone and not wanting to dabble in astral projection.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question because, I love it that you have an artistic side, and that helps me appreciate that about you, and it opens up new possibilities for me to think about. And so, I definitely don't want to shut that component down of being in the zone and having an imagination. But I think we also have to keep in mind that there are certain soulish and even spiritual components to that. What we fill our imaginations with can be a reflection of the things that we meditate on, the things that we think about. And so we as Christians, we want to be intentional about filling our minds and our imaginations with things that are consistent with our worldview. The astral projection issue for me, because this is an area that I know some things about, was pretty overt in one of the scenes. They were using technical terms that would key for people who are in the new age. They would know what that is. But I could see how some people could miss those terms if they're not familiar with the practice of astral projection and the use of chakras as well.
So as we kind of think about this from a Christian perspective, then what are some things to be mindful of, and maybe some conversations that we might have as a result of watching and enjoying a film like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an opportunity to reflect on the nature of the body and soul together, that in historic Christianity, we are an integrated being. When we go to the new creation, our faith teaches us that we will have glorified bodies, that we are not just merely a soul waiting to be freed from our physical bodies. We are body and soul, and we will go into the eternal state as that. I think another really interesting lesson in the film is that, to be in the moment, that's what makes life worth living, is enjoying every minute. I think that there could be some wisdom to that from a biblical point of view, that we do want to maximize our time on earth for the purpose of growing God's kingdom, and Matthew 28:19, bringing the good news to all the nations.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that, Krista. So if people want to explore how to test worldviews, we highly recommend Ken Sample's book, A World of Difference. You can find that on shop.reasons.org.